She was abandoned on a date, but a millionaire. CEO's incredible words changed everything forever. Emily adjusted the hem of her dress, taking a deep breath as she peered at her reflection. The waitress in her wanted to hide away, but she was giving herself a chance tonight to escape the weight of her family's financial struggles, if only for a moment. She had built up this date in her mind, convinced that it could be the first stepping stone toward a better life. Yet, moments later, on the soft-lit table in that chic restaurant, her heart sank when he excused himself and vanished without so much as a word. The world blurred around her as a rush of emotions crashed in. Embarrassment twisted her stomach into knots. Wiping her face hastily, she heard snippets of a conversation from the table next to hers. "But how do we balance profit and ethics?" A confident voice cut through the din. "We owe it to our communities, our entrepreneurs." It was a man, cool, composed, sharing insights with a partner about social responsibility in business. Emily felt pangs of painful inadequacy. Here she was, a waitress in a small diner, lost amidst their high-minded talk. Yet there was something about his voice that ignited her curiosity. Gathering her courage, she cautiously interjected, voicing her thoughts on their dilemma. Mark, his name rolled off his partner's tongue like a familiar tune, turned to her, his blue eyes widening in interest. Emily spoke, her awkwardness melting away as she shared her vision of sustainable practices. They began a dialogue that opened a door she didn't know existed. Mark, it turned out, had his own story of grinding through tough beginnings, illuminating the chasm between them not only in cash, but in how far they'd both traveled. And it felt safe, for a moment, to dream of bigger things while connecting with someone who seemed to understand. Weeks flew by, and their burgeoning friendship morphed into something unexpected. Mark took her under his wing, steering her through the intricacies of scholarship applications while revealing the nuances of an industry she longed to dive into. Yet, as he guided her through potential pathways, the reality of her family's financial crisis loomed like a dark cloud. Her parents' struggles turned her dreams into a guilt-ridden weighing scale, the pressure of their needs pulling her down. Should she forgo her ambitions to help them? Emily's mind raced with anxiety as a deadline approached. She needed to focus on her studies, but she could hear her parents' urgent voices, money for bills, groceries, medical stress. She felt the relentless grind of their dependence become a vice around her heart. What if she dedicated herself to chasing her dream and the worst happened? No, she couldn't allow herself to slip away when they needed her most. The clash of duty and desire squeezed her chest, and she struggled to breathe as self-doubt threatened to drown her. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. One evening, just as she felt inertia settling in, Mark reached out with a proposition that made her blood run cold. The opportunity was tantalizing, a lifeline that could ensure her studies were taken care of, but it raised an ethical storm inside her. Could she accept help when it felt like it came from privilege she'd always admired from afar? It was a slippery slope. Accepting help could shatter the pride in her upbringing. Mark, sensing her hesitation, shared his own vulnerabilities, bearing the truths of his past that hid beneath his success. The closeness between them deepened, but it only amplified her turmoil. Would her dreams demand sacrifices, ultimately costing her who she was? With uncertainty clawing at her insides, Emily stood on the brink of a life-altering choice that could be both a blessing and a betrayal. Would she seize the chance, risking everything, or would she hold tight to her pride, knowing it could cost her the future she so desperately desired? Emily stared at the dim light of her phone, the glow illuminating her doubt, much like the moon casts an eerie shimmer in darker waters. It was late, and the shadows danced across her room, a reflection of the turmoil brewing inside of her. The weight of Mark's offer pressed heavily against her conscience, begging to be addressed. She had envisioned a life filled with promise and adventure, yet here she was, trapped between the dreams she harbored and the reality she faced. As she tossed and turned, her mind raced through every scenario. The scholarships lined up, each one reminiscent of a fragile tower, balanced precariously on a narrow ledge. What if she reached out with trembling hands and accepted the help? Would it put her family on a path to stability, or would it fracture the identity she clung to? Every tick of the clock echoed her internal conflict, replaying her parents' worried faces each time the bills piled higher. It was time to reevaluate. She grabbed her notebook and opened it to a blank page, the familiar scent of paper grounding her in the present. With pen in hand, Emily outlined her thoughts, aspirations, responsibilities, worries. The page filled quickly, transforming into a chaotic map of her emotions. Each note was a challenge, a rebellion against the doubts clouding her mind. Mark believed in her. Could his encouragement nudge her toward believing in herself? That week, she began volunteering at a local community center with the hope of understanding practical uses of her dreams. The center provided a platform where young adults gathered to discuss entrepreneurship and social responsibility, an echo of Mark's discussions at the restaurant. Although her heart raced with apprehension at first, she found a familiar pulse in the discussions, a connection she hadn't anticipated. It ignited a small spark of potential she hadn't realized thrived in her. Those interactions revealed hidden truths about her own capabilities. The more she spoke, the more fluid her ideas became. Despite her initial fears of inadequacy, she thrived alongside others who shared experiences of struggle. Each success story, however small, was both an encouragement and a tool for her own development. Maybe she was capable of more than she thought. But with every new step forward, the shadow of her family's financial burden loomed large. Each shared idea at the community center was a reminder of her dual existence, one that aspired for more while the other remained anchored in sacrifice. Accepting Mark's support felt like crossing a threshold into an unknown territory where she'd have to confront her worthiness and values. One evening, as she sat down with her parents to discuss upcoming bills, Emily felt a swell of courage. "What if I pursued education and still helped you?" she proposed, her voice steady despite the hesitation in her heart. Their puzzled and concerned expression spoke volumes, but the fierce gnawing in her mind encouraged her to continue. "Maybe I can work part-time, and you can save some costs. Together we can navigate this." Their initial disapproval didn't derail her determination, it tempered her resolve. She began devising a concrete plan, worrying less about judgment and focusing on her mission. She would rise up not just for her dreams, but for her family too. The fear and uncertainty still lingered in the background, but each passing day fueled her newfound activism to embody the change she desperately sought. As Emily determinedly prepared for her next session at the community center, Mark's words echoed in her mind, about ethics intertwining with ambition. The looming decision about accepting help stills fear. Was her pride truly worth risking the future she aimed to secure? Or could she leverage this opportunity to be both an independent dreamer and a responsible daughter? Her heart thumped steadily in response. The moment of truth was approaching, and within her, the call to action thrummed louder. Would she refuse the lifeline offered by Mark, or could she reframe the situation and embrace it as part of her journey? With a resolute breath, she knew she wouldn't shy away from the challenges ahead. As she stepped out, ready to face both the community and her family with new clarity, she felt something shift inside her. Accepting who she was and what she wanted was not a betrayal. It was the first step in crafting a future she could truly own. But little did she know, a confrontation awaited, one that would test her resolve in ways she never imagined possible. The sun dipped below the horizon, and the vibrant colors painted the sky. But Emily felt no warmth from the glow. Instead, dread settled on her shoulders like a heavy cloak. Mark's words echoed in her mind. "Sometimes, we need to accept help to become who we're meant to be." She had replayed that line endlessly, yet every iteration thrilled and terrified her. How could a single choice determine her fate? Shaking off her hesitation, she refocused. The community discussions buzzed in her ears, recounting how individual stories forged powerful pathways towards success. It was challenging, her feet rooted firmly in two worlds, one of ideals and dreams, and the other of harsh financial realities. On her way to the restaurant where she worked, Emily's mind roamed to the upcoming meeting she had planned with Mark. They would evaluate potential opportunities and see how she could leverage his offer without compromising her values. Still, doubts took root. What did she truly need to thrive? Was accepting his help tantamount to surrendering her dreams to someone else's vision? That tension tugged at her as the shift from her role as student to professional loomed. She clenched the steering wheel tighter, the fabric of her aspirations fraying along the edges due to her family's precarious situation. But could one person's belief in her potential provide the foundation she desperately needed? As she pulled into the parking lot, Emily steeled herself with a deep breath. Today, she would dare to ask questions that could alter her trajectory forever. Entering the restaurant, the familiar sounds of sizzling pans and lively chatter enveloped her, a home where she had built relationships that fostered both loyalty and self-reflection. Making her way to the back, she spotted Mark deep in conversation with a couple of co-workers. His animated gestures and constant laughter drew people in, a beacon of light among shadows of doubt. Emily approached him, heart racing. "Hey, do you have a moment?" she asked, feigning calmness under the gentle chaos of the restaurant. "Always for you, Emily," he responded, his smile shining like a lighthouse for her stormy thoughts. They found a quiet booth in the back, away from the clatter. Emily's voice trembled involuntarily as she laid out her concerns, describing her family's burdens alongside her aspirations. Every word felt both freeing and suffocating. She yearned to grasp at the threads of support he offered, without unraveling her intricate tapestry of self-reliance. "I can't help but feel like accepting your aid would mean I'm failing my parents," she confessed, thin walls of emotion framing her vulnerability. Mark leaned forward, his expression thoughtful. "Emily, accepting help doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're choosing to invest in your future. Think of this as a partnership, not a handout. Together, you and your family could navigate this trajectory." His words strummed the chords of her uncertainty, igniting a spark of consideration. Could a partnership reshape not just her destiny, but also her family's perception of success? As they talked through solutions, Emily's internal landscape shifted. Their conversation opened avenues she hadn't previously traversed, encountering the notion of mentorship entwined with responsibility. It brought forth possibilities she had long deemed unattainable. However, for every new idea Mark presented, a nagging voice emerged within her, a chorus of skepticism and dependence echoed by her family. Could she defy those expectations and still secure their stability? This internal standoff twisted through her mind, feeding her anxiety and determination in equal measure. The meeting drifted towards its conclusion, and Emily felt the weight of decision loom heavier than before. A choice loomed on the horizon, one that teetered between compromise and growth. "Emily, trust yourself. The best leaders embrace both strengths and weaknesses, using each to bolster their journey. The time has come to embrace this moment," Mark said. That sudden clarity flickered in her mind like an ember caught in the wind, igniting a revelation. Wasn't the greatest act of defiance standing tall amidst uncertainty? As she stood to leave, the tension within her coiled tighter. Accepting help could empower her, intertwining her dreams and her family's stability. Yet a lingering hesitation still gripped her. How would she reconcile her newfound perspective with parental expectations once she revealed her decision? Walking out, she realized her confrontation was only beginning. The struggle between self-acceptance and family loyalty would ultimately demand her entire strength. As she stepped into the evening, the jagged edge of possibility mingled with echoes of uncertainty. The real question was not if she would act, but how she would navigate the storm that awaited her at home. Would she reveal her next steps to her parents, and how might they respond? The impending confrontation rested heavily on her chest like the sun at dusk, a gift and a burden she could no longer ignore. The following morning, Emily paced her small kitchen, the familiar smell of brewing coffee hanging in the air, a routine that did little to calm her racing mind. She stared out the window, her gaze drifting to the early risers strolling through the neighborhood. Each person seemed to embody the confidence she craved, while she felt tethered to uncertainty, the weight of impending decisions pressing upon her. How could she articulate her dilemma to her parents? Proposing an alliance with Mark felt akin to navigating a minefield, where one misstep could provoke questions of loyalty and practicality. They had weathered storms together, and she couldn't shake the guilt that accompanied thoughts of leaving their struggles behind. Torn between ambition and familial allegiance, she brewed another cup, hoping clarity would surface. At the restaurant, Emily's routine was punctuated by mundane tasks that momentarily distracted from her inner turmoil. As she chopped vegetables, her mind returned to last night's conversation with Mark. The prospect of partnership sparked excitement, igniting a small flame in her heart that she desperately wanted to nurture. Yet each time, her thoughts spiraled back to doubts. Did she possess the resolve to step away from the comforts of her familiar world? A sudden voice broke her thoughts. "You okay there, Em?" Sarah, her co-worker, leaned against the counter, concern etched on her face. "Yeah, just thinking," Emily replied, forcing a smile as she finished slicing. "Thinking too much is your problem." Sarah chuckled lightly. "You've got to trust your gut. It'll lead you down the right path." The encouragement struck a chord. How long had she underestimated her instincts? Wasn't this uncertainty merely the first step toward understanding her true potential? That day, as her shift progressed, a burgeoning resolve began to take form. If Mark was offering mentorship, it wasn't about surrendering her identity. Wouldn't it reflect her strength to ask for guidance, while ensuring her family's needs were still prioritized? By the end of her shift, Emily felt the pulse of her convictions grow stronger. She picked up her phone, her fingers trembling as she typed a message to Mark. "Can we meet again? I think I'm ready to discuss my next steps more openly." His swift response ignited a thrill of anticipation. "Absolutely. I'm here when you're ready." Leaving work that night, a sense of purpose propelled her forward. Yet, doubt lingered at the edges of her mind like a shadow. How could she turn this spark of possibility into actionable steps? And more pressing, how would her parents perceive this shift? When she finally sat across from them at dinner, the weight of her untold story felt heavier than the food on her plate. She could see the tired lines etched on their faces, the marks of their sacrifices. Guilt coiled within her. How could she express her new aspirations while adhering to their shared commitments? "Mom, Dad, there's something important I need to discuss," she began, her heart pounding as silence enveloped the table. Their eyes locked onto hers, curious but wary. "Is everything all right?" her father asked, concern lacing his tone. With every word she spoke, Emily felt her ancestral ties tug at her resolve. She outlined her conversation with Mark, navigating her hopes and hesitations. The air shifted, tension growing palpable as she braced for their reactions. The very confrontation she had feared now palpable and unavoidable. Her mother's expression hardened slightly. "And you believe that partnering with him is the solution to our problems?" Emily absorbed the accusation, the way her mother's voice quivered beneath her steadfast facade. But her instincts told her something essential. This was a moment of truth. She had to stand firm, even as her own heart questioned her motivations. "Yes, I do. And it's not just for me, it's for all of us," she replied, determination crystallizing her voice. The ensuing silence felt like a chasm, each side waiting for the other to leap. A choice stood before them, straddling complexity and hope. Would her parents see that embracing help could fortify their future instead of fracturing their foundation? Or would they cling to the past as the only anchor? As she stared into the unsure faces of her family, the path forward seemed fraught with challenge. Would they understand her desire for growth, or would their fears shackle her aspirations? Just then, Emily realized the most daunting step lay ahead, not merely in revealing her choices, but in finding the courage to embrace potential amidst resistance. Would she find the strength to redefine not just her path, but the very fabric of their familial expectations? The moment hung like a tightrope beneath her, the call for balance echoing in her mind. The confrontation had commenced, but the true battle for her dreams, and their acceptance, had only just begun. The quiet lingered, stretching thin like a fragile web as Emily searched her parents' faces for a hint of understanding. Her heart pounded, insistent against the backdrop of her thoughts. This was not merely about her. It was about the shared history that shaped every family dinner, every decision made with unspoken rules of loyalty binding them together. "I just want the best for you," her mother softened, tension flickering like a candle flame. "But we've made sacrifices, Emily. Are you really prepared to leave everything behind for a partner you barely know?" Those words felt like daggers. It wasn't about abandoning them, she wanted to scream. It was about growing beyond the confines of their fears. Yet, how could she be certain her parents would understand? "It's not about leaving, Mom. It's about building something that can support us all," she countered, feeling the weight of her hesitation transform into defiance. Her father leaned in, brows furrowed. "We believe in hard work, Emily. Your mother and I have faced challenges head-on. Why turn to someone else for help?" Swallowing the lump in her throat, she grappled with the echo of their sacrifices. Each hardship her parents endured laid a path of expectations that weighed heavily on her shoulders. Hadn't she learned the value of perseverance? Yet, at that moment, she felt the stirrings of a broader ambition clawing for her voice. "And what if I could bring new ideas and resources that could benefit us all? Taking this step could be my contribution to our family, not a rejection of it." For the first time, her mother faltered, her eyes flickering with doubt and comprehension. "What do you really hope to achieve?" It was a question that lingered in the air, punctuating the tension that had built over the years. With newfound clarity, Emily replied, "I want to make something of myself, to find my own way." I want us to be proud of our choices, to not just survive, but thrive." Confidence coursed through her veins, sweeping away the fog of uncertainty. As the conversation veered deeper, Emily began to articulate her vision with increasing fervor. She envisioned the restaurant flourishing under a partnership with Mark, learning from his experiences while also grounding those lessons in her family's values. Her parents, initially resistant, began to soften, absorbing the passion in her voice. Yet, while she felt the stirrings of possibility, doubt clawed at her resolve. What if this discussion did not end with acceptance? The very foundation of her conviction was now intertwined with potential rejection. Finding footing in uncharted territory was daunting. Better to cling to what was known than to leap into despair. When the meal concluded and the kitchen was cleared, Emily observed her parents whispering softly, glancing at her with a mixture of pride and concern. She had carved a different narrative for them, a future defined not by fear, but by ambition. A day passed, and Emily returned to work, the excitement of her discussion still lingering. She had laid the groundwork and now needed to solidify her plans with Mark. The following day she met him again, a sense of urgency propelling her forward. "Emily, I'm thrilled you've come," he greeted, his charisma wrapping around her like a warm embrace. "Thank you for meeting with me," she replied, her voice steady but ignited by an undercurrent of exhilaration and trepidation. They dove into discussions about vision, strategy, and the values that would ground this new venture. She could feel every word strengthening not just her professional stance, but also her self-assurance. "Why do you want to do this?" Mark asked, his gaze piercing, pressing her for deeper truth. Her heartbeat quickened under his scrutiny. "Because I finally realize I can't just wait for opportunities to come to me. I have to create them, to step boldly into the life I want." The words tasted of liberation, setting free a weight she hadn't known she'd been carrying. Yet, a nagging feeling loomed, intertwining her personal aspirations with familial obligations. How could she ensure this new path wouldn't create further rifts? Uncertainty tugged and pulled at her ambitions, questioning all she had chosen to voice. As she prepared to leave the meeting, Mark leaned closer. "Remember, it's okay to challenge your comfort zone. Growth comes from discomfort." His words echoed in her mind, igniting both hope and apprehension. Would she truly embrace the stress of potential failure or embarrassment that change entailed? As she drove home, Emily felt the duality of excitement and fear engulfing her spirit. The next few steps felt monumental, but there was truth in Mark's assertion. Stepping forward meant facing discomfort head-on, even if it tested her resolve. But what awaited her at the arrival was still shrouded in doubt. Would her family come to see the vision she held, or would resistance diminish the flame of her aspirations? This new chapter in her life whispered promises while threatening storms loomed as well. Could she balance the scales of ambition and loyalty, or would her pursuit forge a path too wide to traverse back home? Emily stood in the kitchen, the mundane task of chopping vegetables grounding her as she reflected on her conversation with Mark. Each slice felt like a release of the tension that had knotted itself within her after their meeting. It was a meditative act, the rhythmic sound of the knife against the cutting board, providing a soothing backdrop to her racing thoughts. Ambition stirred within her, a powerful undercurrent that felt both exhilarating and overwhelming. Her mother's worried face from the previous night replayed in her mind. The weight of her parents' sacrifices pressed down, but simultaneously gave rise to a burning desire to honor those sacrifices by pursuing her own path. She had voiced her aspirations to Mark, but now she wrestled with revealing them fully to her family. Would they comprehend the necessity of her choices? Blinded by love and duty, would they recognize the potential benefits her aspiration could bring beyond their circles? The kitchen timer beeped, snapping her out of her reverie. She prepared the meal for her family, her hands moving mechanically while her mind spiraled into contemplation. What if their resistance could be transformed into support? What if her parents could take pride in her ambition rather than fear it? One idea flickered like a candle in a dark room. She could consider involving them in her plans, not as investors but as mentors, guiding her with their hard-earned wisdom. Dinner was a familiar ritual, the aroma of home-cooked food wrapping around them like a warm embrace. As they gathered at the table, Emily recognized the dance of their conversations. Life's trivialities masked the underlying currents of unshared fears and unexpressed aspirations. She joined in, feigning ease while internally grappling with her fragmented resolve. "Emily, how's work been?" her father inquired, curiosity glinting in his eyes. It was an opening. She swallowed, the taste of courage turning bitter as she prepared to shift the dialogue. "Actually, Dad, I've been thinking a lot about the future lately. she began, her voice shaky yet determined. The air thickened. The clink of cutlery halted as her parents turned their full attention toward her. "I've been talking to Mark about starting something new, a restaurant, a partnership. It means a lot to me." Each word felt like a step off a cliff, terrifying yet potentially liberating. Her mother's response was immediate, a tension tightening around her brows. "A restaurant? But what about job security? You've always had a stable path. This sounds risky." A shadow of concern crossed her face, mirroring her previous apprehensions. "I know it sounds risky, but I'm serious about this. I can bring what we've learned from you into this venture," Emily explained, the confidence she had once borrowed from Mark now tethered to her own sense of purpose. "This isn't just for me, it's about all of us, a future we can build together. Think of it as an extension of our family values into a new world." Her father leaned back, folding his arms, digesting her words like a puzzle laid out before him. Emily's heart raced, unsure if the challenge had lit a spark of potential or merely fueled their skepticism. As silence settled, uncertainty gnawed at her resolve. Suddenly her mother asked, "How would this affect your job? What if everything collapses?" "It will be hard work, I can't deny that," Emily replied, her voice firming. "But I'm ready for it. I don't want to fail, but I can't let fear dictate my choices anymore." "Often the road less traveled is filled with obstacles," her father added, eyes narrowing as he probed further into her ambition. A direct confrontation was brewing, and Emily's throat tightened. Each word spoken could either bind her to the safety of family expectations or liberate her to pursue the unpredictable freedom that came with ambition. As she gathered her thoughts, Mark's voice echoed in her mind, "Embracing discomfort leads to growth." The resolve shifted within her, and with renewed determination, she added, "I understand your concerns, and I respect everything you've sacrificed. But if I don't take this leap, I might always wonder, what if? I don't want to live in a world of regrets." The conversation swirled around her, a mix of camaraderie and contention. Emily felt the resistance, the love, and the tangled emotions forming around the dinner table. The outcome felt palpable, charged with potential yet shrouded in uncertainty. As the meal wound down, she resolved to confront whatever awaited her truth. Would her family join her in this new venture, or cling to comfort at the expense of her aspirations? Emily's heart raced with both fear and determination. She had cast her desires into the open, leaving her future hanging by a thread. The weight of those decisions loomed large as she returned to her room that night, grappling with the next steps. There, on her desk, lay the restaurant proposal untouched. Would it be the manifestation of her dreams, or merely a forgotten page in the story of her life? Emily leaned against the desk, her resolve hardening. It was time to face her family again, this time as an equal, ready to secure her voice. What they decided next would either forge a path or shatter the fragile hopes she had carefully built. With every breath, she embraced the reality that the moment had come to delve deeper into her next challenge. Would she be strong enough to withstand the forces against her, or would she bend beneath the weight of their expectations? That confrontation would determine everything. The next morning, the sunlight poured through Emily's window, a soft reminder of the day ahead. She pushed herself off the desk, a hint of determination settling in her chest. Her mind churned with potential outcomes of the night before, each scenario swirling into a chaotic whirlpool of hope and dread. She dressed deliberately, choosing not just what to wear but also what to embody. A woman stepping into her power. Breakfast was a muted affair, a stark contrast to the storm brewing within her. Her parents spoke in low tones, the atmosphere charged with unspoken words. Emily knew the conversation from last night still lingered between them, an invisible barrier poised to confront her once more. They dutifully passed the orange juice, but she sensed their hesitance, their need to address her ambition. The inevitable was approaching like a train on a fixed track. "Emily," her father began, his tone weighted with solemnity, "we need to talk about your plans." The moment had arrived, a collision of expectations and dreams. She inhaled deeply, bracing for the conversation ahead. "I'm ready," she asserted, her voice steady and resolute. "It's not that we don't believe in you," her mother interjected, fingers anxiously tracing her napkin. "We just worry. Everyone wishes to protect their kids, and moving into the unknown could expose you to failure they never had to face." The words cut deeper than intended. Emily's pulse quickened. Was this how love manifested? Through fear? She wanted to scream in frustration, but she understood their perspective. It was how they'd weathered life's storms. Yet beneath that concern simmered her own desire to rise above a life dictated by predictability. "If I don't take the risks, I'll suffocate," she countered, urgency coloring her words. "This isn't just about me stepping out into the unknown. It's about what we can build as a family. Imagine a restaurant where community thrives, where your stories and traditions are intertwining with new recipes, new lives. It's not just a career move, it's a legacy." Silence engulfed the room, each word echoing against the walls, reverberating in her own chest. Emily felt the weight of their scrutiny. Did they still see a daughter afraid to leave the nest, or were they beginning to perceive the woman who stood before them, intent on carving her own horizon? Her father wiped his brow, fidgeting in his seat. "It's just that. Sometimes dreams seem too far-fetched. We've seen too many people chase them and fall." "Dad, I could fall," Emily acknowledged gently. "But isn't that part of living? It's not about the destination, it's about the journey. I want to learn, grow, and yes, even stumble. I would rather fall trying than stand stagnant in safety." The heaviness of her argument hung in the air, thick with tension. Her mother met her gaze, vulnerability flickering behind her defenses. "What if we support you but still worry?" she whispered, the cracks in her maternal shield revealing how deeply this affected her. "You can worry," Emily softened her voice, "but I need your faith, not your doubt. I want to create something we can be proud of together. It honors all that you've done." There was a shift as her parents glanced at one another. An unspoken dialogue unfolded in their eyes. The recognition was a quiet triumph, a slow acknowledgement that began to pave the way toward trust. Yet she also felt the feathers of hesitation. They weren't entirely on board yet. As breakfast concluded, Emily felt the veil of uncertainty creep back in. The conversation had wavered between hope and fear, and while she'd expressed her desire boldly, the battle wasn't over. She couldn't retreat into silence now. She had to push further, to show them why this mattered. Re-entering her room, she caught sight of the untouched restaurant proposal once more, its pristine pages waiting for her next move. Her mind raced with fresh energy and visions for the tasting menu she would create. This was her life, and she had every right to shape it. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. A message from Mark, reminding her of their meeting later that day to discuss logistics and vision. That invitation felt like a lifeline. Was this the moment she would convince him she was prepared? As she formulated her thoughts, she realized she could use this opportunity to not just sample ideas, but to solidify her voice, sharpen her plan. As she began to gather her materials together, Emily paused to reflect on her family's earlier concerns. Deep inside her, the familiar flicker of fear crept back, but this time it transformed into fuel. She needed to expose her vulnerabilities, not just to them, but to herself. This journey was more significant than just a restaurant or her family's apprehensions. It was about understanding her resilience, aligning her passions with her aspirations, and understanding the duality of fear and courage. The tension of the hour pressed upon her shoulders, but as she prepared for her meeting with Mark, she felt the stirrings of something greater than doubt. Empowerment. Would she inspire her family to embrace the unknown alongside her, or would the walls of fear remain unyielding? With new resolve, she stepped into her future, ready for the confrontation ahead. The moment of truth was arriving, and she was determined to seize it, armed with clarity and conviction. What awaited at the crossroads would ultimately chart her path forward. Emily arrived at the cafe, its lively atmosphere juxtaposing the tumult within her. The enticing aroma of fresh coffee wrapped around her, a stark contrast to the bubbling anxiety in her chest. She clutched her proposal tightly under her arm, a manifest of dreams she was slowly learning to articulate more confidently. This meeting with Mark was not just a business arrangement, it was a pivotal moment in her personal journey, a chance to unearth the layers of her ambition. As she waited, she replayed their last discussion in her mind, gauging the points where they aligned and diverged. Mark was a man of experience, a partner whose insight could either validate her vision or dismantle it completely. She had to be prepared, not just with a plan, but with the conviction that her dream was worth fighting for. Mark arrived, his demeanor calm yet commanding. "Emily, good to see you again," he said with a warm smile. "I'm eager to hear your thoughts." "Thank you for meeting me, Mark," she replied, her heart pounding. "I've worked on a refined proposal." She slid the meticulously prepared document across the table, watching his expression as he opened it. While he scanned the pages, Emily felt a torrent of thoughts pressing against her consciousness. Would he appreciate her vision? Would he see her ambition as one worth championing? She had meticulously crafted not only the tasting menu, but also an idea of what the atmosphere of the restaurant would encapsulate. An experience, not just a meal. Interesting concept, Mark mused, looking up from the proposal, his brow furrowing slightly. But have you considered your market? You need to appeal to a wider demographic. His words struck at her confidence. I know it might not resonate with everyone right away, but it's about creating a community. It's authenticity over broad appeal. The words flew from her mouth with an urgency that surprised her. You talk about community as if it's your anchor, he said, studying her intently. But community also involves listening, adapting, not just pushing your vision. That remark cut deeper than she expected. His challenge was not merely an assessment of her project. It was a challenge to her very foundation. Did she possess the flexibility to adjust her dreams without losing their essence? How could she navigate the balance between vision and practicality? Emily felt the warmth in her chest wane, replaced by a familiar doubt. I want to honor traditions and engage new experiences, she replied more softly, tracing her fingers nervously over the edge of the table. But I'm also terrified of blending in. Mark leaned back, the tension at the table palpable. Fear is a powerful motivator, Emily, but it can cloud your vision. Who are you as a restaurateur? In that moment, the weight of his question reverberated in her mind. Who was she? She had dismissed her fear as a weapon to wield against doubt, but perhaps it was time to appreciate it differently. I am someone who wants to create a space where people can feel genuinely connected, she finally articulated, searching his eyes for understanding. Where their experiences and ours come together over food. His expression shifted slightly, an inkling of respect dawning. That's a compelling narrative. But what if that fear drives you to make choices that are too safe? Where is the risk in that? She sat in stunned silence, contemplating his words. The conversation had morphed from a presentation into a personal exploration. In order to shape her path, she realized she needed to integrate resilience and authenticity. There was power in vulnerability, in straddling the line between ambition and fear. As the dialogue continued, Emily found herself less focused on defending her ideas and more on embracing a process of co-creation. Mark's critiques became her guiding light, illuminating ways she could evolve, ways she could push the boundaries of her creativity, and his interest shifted from skepticism to encouragement. By the time their meeting drew to a close, Emily felt a sense of purpose revitalizing her spirit. They had forged a mutual understanding, shaping her vision from a seedling into something potentially significant. Yet, there remained an unaddressed urgency flickering within. Would she be able to sustain this momentum when she faced her family again, armed with new insights? As they stood to part ways, Mark offered one last thoughtful observation. Remember, your dream demands courage, not just at the inception, but throughout. Don't shy away from that challenge, Emily. Own it. His words lingered long after he left, embedding themselves deep within her psyche. Courage, not safety, would navigate her journey forward. As she stepped back into the bustling world outside, she found herself at another crossroads, her path illuminated by the dawn of understanding. The real measure of her aspirations lay in her ability to confront fear with clarity and purpose. But just as she caught her breath in rejuvenated resolve, a text from her mother lit up her phone, demanding her attention. We need to talk. I'm worried. How could she ease their concerns while maintaining her newfound clarity? Emily stared at the screen, her mother's words gnawing at her composure. The sincerity in the message pressed against her chest, a reminder of the delicate ties binding her aspirations to familial expectations. She took a deep breath, grounding herself as she walked through the cafe's entrance and into the bustling street, a soft breeze playfully tousling her hair. The world around her felt overwhelmingly vibrant, yet the anxiety simmered just beneath the surface. In her car, she glanced in the mirror, contemplating her next move. Would she explain her vision to her mother? Would she share her fear of disappointing her family with this risky endeavor? The thought of her mother's concerned face sent a ripple of doubt through her. If she revealed her excitement, would it be dimmed by maternal worry? More telling was the nagging question. Was she truly ready to stand firm in her identity as a restaurateur? The drive home was consumed by gripping internal debates. She had embarked on this journey to carve out her space. Yet, faced with the prospect of sharing her ambitions with those who had once prioritized steadiness over risk, she felt vulnerable. The friction of her dreams against her family's expectations threatened to unmoor her. Maybe if I can explain it differently, she muttered to herself, reaching for a notebook that lay on the passenger seat. She needed an approach, a narrative that could merge both her growing ambition and her family's desires for her pragmatism. As she parked outside her house, memories flooded her mind. Sunday dinners where food was an unspoken bond rather than a mere necessity. Family recipes bound them, traditions she both cherished and felt suffocated by. How much had she internalized those values, and how could she honor them while daring to venture into the unknown? Once inside, she found her mother in the kitchen, hands busy chopping vegetables, the familiar fragrance of garlic wafting through the air. The sight brought a wave of warmth, but also a pang of inadequacy as she approached. "Hey, Mom!" Emily's voice cracked slightly, betraying her internal struggle. "Emily!" Her mother turned with a wide smile before the expression shifted, tension threading her brow. "You received my text. We need to talk." Taking a seat at the worn kitchen table, Emily felt the weight of her mother's gaze. I've been thinking a lot about what we discussed the last time we spoke, about my ideas." "How did the meeting go?" her mother asked, her voice softer, yet laced with a hint of concern. "It went well, actually," Emily replied, her courage starting to paint over the cracks of doubt. "Mark challenged me to think bigger. He made me realize that creating this restaurant isn't just about the food. It's more about the experience and the connection it fosters." Her mother's expression was skeptical. "But you know it's a risk, right? Are you sure you're ready for this?" The words hung in the air like an accusation, yet they nudged Emily to confront her fears. "I know the risks, Mom, but I think I can do this on my terms. I want to prove to both of us that I can succeed without losing myself along the way." As she met her mother's eyes, uncertainty washed over Emily again, but it was mingled with defiance. The revelation whispered in her mind. She didn't just want to create a restaurant, she wanted to construct a legacy, a synthesis of her heritage and her aspirations. Her mother's brow furrowed deeper, a sign of the inner conflict raging within her. "You're so young, Emily. I just want to make sure you're not setting yourself up for failure." "I won't know unless I try," Emily countered, her voice steadying. "And this is who I am. It's time I step into that identity fully." Silence enveloped the room, each tick of the clock measuring the heaviness of expectation against the urgency of self-definition. Then, her mother spoke hesitantly. "I trust you, but promise me you'll remain grounded?" The weight of sincerity in her mother's words settled over Emily like a protective embrace. "I promise." But a flame of determination ignited within her. Instead of being defined by expectations, she would redefine them, for herself, and perhaps even for her family. As they shifted toward lighter conversation, a spark of possibility lingered like an unlit fuse ready to explode, reminding Emily of the strides still ahead. As she sat at the table, savoring simple moments, it dawned on her. The real challenge loomed not in the confrontation with her family, but in staying true to her vision as she moved forward. She finished dinner, her heart racing at the prospect of what came next. Yet another challenge loomed outside those walls. How would she articulate her restaurant's concept to investors, especially those who might resist her unique vision? With clarity blossoming within her, she felt the call to action tighten around her. With plans swirling in her mind, Emily resolved to make her next moves deliberate, emboldened by the collective weight of courage and love. Yet, as she reached for her notebook, a familiar sense flickered. Would her independence lead to inevitable isolation, or could she forge her own path with familial support? Determined to find out, she pulled out her phone, ready to set up a meeting with potential investors. Moments later, as she typed, the screen lit up with another text notification, this time from Mark. "Let's discuss revising your proposal. I see potential in your vision." Caught between excitement and fear, she took a deep breath, embracing both the promise and peril of the path she was charting. New horizons beckoned, but first, she had to face the uncertainties they carried. Beyond her own ambitions lay the key question. Would she allow doubt to steer her journey, or would she seize the reins to navigate it on her terms? And hovering above it all was the question she hadn't yet found the answer to. Could she truly harmonize her vision with reality? As the sun set, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Emily sat at her kitchen table, her proposal in front of her. The weight of her dreams transformed into tangible markers of her progress, an embodiment of her journey toward independence. She had traversed an arduous path of doubt and determination, her mind filled with the echoes of the conversations that had defined her recent steps. With newfound clarity, she understood that this venture was not simply about creating a restaurant. It was about embracing who she was meant to become. Each slice in her proposal represented more than culinary choices. It articulated her vision of community, connection, and empowerment. It was a culmination of her ambitions intertwined with her family's legacy. Over the past weeks, she had developed a framework that honored not only her dreams, but her family's values. Emily reviewed the sections time and again, ensuring that each part resonated with authenticity. She envisioned a bustling restaurant where the aroma of familial recipes would intertwine with innovative dishes, creating a space that celebrated both heritage and new beginnings. Moments before the meeting with her investors, her heart raced with a blend of excitement and trepidation. She recalled her parents' worried expressions, their love an anchor that sometimes felt like an obstacle. But now, she felt ready to confront that concern. This was not merely a personal ambition. It was an evolution that belonged to her family as well. They had sculpted the foundation upon which she now stood. Emily squared her shoulders as she entered the meeting room. A long table stretched out before her, filled with sharp-dressed investors who embodied the very world she intended to disrupt. Their skeptical glances flicked toward her, assessing. Rather than shrinking under scrutiny, she welcomed the challenge and took her place at the helm of the presentation. "Thank you for meeting with me today," she began, her voice steadier than she felt. "I am here not just to present a restaurant concept, but to share a vision rooted in collaboration, tradition, and innovation." As she detailed her proposal, the energy shifted. Her passion began to captivate even the most stoic faces around the table. Emily spoke with a conviction previously reserved for her private reflections. She articulated the tangible ways her restaurant would reflect her community's essence, while carving out a niche in the bustling landscape of the culinary scene. "Imagine a place where stories are shared over meals, where our heritage marries new flavors, creating a dining experience that evokes warmth and belonging," she concluded, lifting her chin defiantly. The silence that followed felt heavy, laden with anticipation. Finally, an investor leaned forward with interest. "You've clearly thought this through," he remarked. "How do you plan to mitigate risks in a market that can be unpredictable?" With swift clarity, Emily addressed their concerns, showcasing her carefully crafted strategies. A nuanced marketing approach, collaboration with local farms, focus on sustainability, and community engagement initiatives. She highlighted how each element not only lessened risk, but enhanced the restaurant's authenticity and appeal. After an intense discussion, a newfound respect began to materialize. They appreciated her comprehensive understanding of both the business landscape and her personal motivations. By the time the meeting adjourned, she felt a tangible shift, a collaborative energy budding forth, foreshadowing partnerships that could bring her dreams to fruition. As she left, relief washed over her. Emily realized she had not only articulated her vision, she had claimed it unapologetically. Her personal growth surged within, echoing the sentiment behind Mark's pivotal words. She was navigating the storm of fear, embracing vulnerability, and showcasing strength. She had proven that she could foster legitimacy in her aspirations without sacrificing her identity. Returning home, a triumphant grin spread across her face. She was ready to share the news with her parents, not as someone stepping into a world detached from their struggles, but as a daughter who was building a bridge between her dreams and their enduring support. The moment of truth lay ahead, and she felt fortified by all she had achieved. Gathering her courage, she approached them, finding her mother absorbed in her evening routine. "Mom, Dad, can we talk?" she asked, her voice assuring. Looking up, her parents nodded, curious yet apprehensive. Emily took a deep breath and began recounting the day, the investors' responses, the engagement she had ignited. As she spoke, the shadows of doubt began to fade, revealing the pride she had longed for in her narrative. "Yes, I'm pursuing this. It's just the beginning," she declared, her voice imbued with conviction. Tears sparkled in her mom's eyes as she grasped Emily's hands, an unspoken understanding knitting them closer. "I believe in you," her mother whispered, the flicker of fear now tempered by faith. Her father, too, showed a glint of pride reflecting on the lineage of perseverance they had cultivated together. "You've come so far, and this is just the first step. We're proud of your growth," he affirmed, his voice layered with reverence. As they embraced, Emily felt the past wane and a new journey unfold. This was a transformation not just of her own character, but of their family narrative. They were stepping into a shared dream together, no longer separate threads, but a unified tapestry of aspirations. With renewed energy, Emily realized that she didn't just aim to conquer her dreams. She wanted to uplift her family and inspire others who dared to navigate their paths. Her heart brimmed with purpose, every fiber of her being pulsating with the realization that she was exactly where she needed to be. And with that truth lighting her way, she began to plan the next steps toward her restaurant, poised to leap steadily into the future, ready to embrace every challenge that lay ahead. The journey of self-discovery and fulfilling her ambitions was only just beginning, and this time she would not walk alone. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support is crucial. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending below. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.